She didn't even wait for the diagnosis. The hospital lights were still flickering from last night's storm when Jamie whispered she needed air and never came back. I didn't panic right away. You learn patience when you've lived in waiting rooms for 7 months. You learn to count your partner's breaths. You learn which vending machine snacks don't set off her nausea. You learn which nurse to avoid when she's having a bad flare. You learn everything, except how to prepare for an empty chair. "Where's Jamie?" Angela asked softly, stepping into the room with a small bouquet and her oversized scarf damp from the rain. "She just went for a walk," I said, and I believed it. Until 4 hours passed, until the nurse confirmed she hadn't signed out, until the hospital's security reviewed the footage and found her walking out the side exit, her hospital bracelet still on, her chart left untouched beside the bed. No note, no voicemail, no message to me, just gone. Daniel called me that evening. He wasn't someone I expected comfort from. We hadn't spoken much since college, but his voice was calm, too calm. "I know this'll sound crazy, John," he said, "but check her social media." I opened it, hands still trembling from hours of unanswered calls. The account had been wiped clean. Every photo we'd posted together, gone. Her bio now read, "Healing alone, no apologies." My stomach twisted. I refreshed the page again. This time, I noticed a new tagged post. A photo, Jamie, smiling, wearing a beige sweater I didn't recognize, hair combed back, skin glowing, standing next to Daniel, his arm around her shoulder, her fingers hooked around the pendant I gave her on our 2nd anniversary, not hidden, not removed, displayed. The caption read, "Some people aren't on medicine, they're just bandages, and bandages come off." I didn't throw the phone, didn't cry, didn't even call Daniel back. Instead, I closed the hospital room door and sat quietly on the edge of her bed. Her book was still on the tray, How to Stay Alive When You're Tired of Trying. I had bought it for her after the 3rd ER visit. She had highlighted a quote, "Love isn't always rescue, sometimes it's just a witness." I had witnessed everything, the fevers, the tremors, the vomiting, the breakdowns in the parking lot at 3 a.m. The days she said she didn't feel real. And when I broke down, once, after I lost a freelance contract, she told me I was being dramatic, said my sadness made her feel guilty. So I never cried again in front of her. Not when I sold my car to pay for her medication. Not when my dad passed and I missed the funeral because she was vomiting blood. Not even now. Angela showed up again 2 days later. "I can't believe her," she said, voice thick. You stayed. No one stays anymore." I didn't answer, just stared at the empty bed like it might somehow whisper back the truth. Angela touched my arm gently. "She used to say you were her calm. Maybe she got tired of being calm." "I was her anchor," I whispered, "and she wanted to drown." Some people meet at concerts, others bump into each other at airport terminals or weddings or while chasing the same cab on a rainy night. Jamie and I met over a dropped inhaler and a torn tote bag at the community pharmacy. She was out of breath. I was in a hurry. "Sorry, I dropped it," she said, pointing toward the floor where her small blue inhaler had rolled under the gum display. I knelt, retrieved it, and placed it in her palm. Her fingers trembled as she clutched it. She didn't thank me right away. She just inhaled deeply, closed her eyes, and took another breath like it was a ceremony. I stepped aside, about to leave, when she added softly, "You'd think after 15 years of this, I'd stop getting embarrassed." "I think it's brave," I replied, still showing up. That was it, the beginning, not cinematic, not loud, just quiet honesty. We started seeing each other at the same place every Friday. She'd pick up her prescriptions, I'd wait in line for overpriced vitamins I didn't need. One day, she handed me a sticky note. "Coffee?" We sat in a corner booth at a quiet cafe near her apartment, and she told me she was a freelance illustrator who hadn't drawn anything in weeks. "I think I'm burned out," she said, sipping hot chocolate with both hands wrapped around the mug. "I'm a writer who hasn't submitted anything in 4 months," I replied. "Let's make burnout a date theme." We were honest from the beginning, about our flaws, our fatigue, the way the world sometimes felt too loud. She told me about her immune condition within the first hour. I told her about my anxiety the next morning. We weren't trying to impress each other. Just to be seen. Jamie didn't believe in flowers, said they die too quickly. So I started bringing her cacti instead. She named the first one Daniel, after a guy who once ghosted her 3 weeks before her birthday. Let him be useful in death, she joked. We laughed, and then she coughed so hard, she nearly dropped the pot. That night, I drove her to urgent care for the first time. I sat in the waiting room holding her sketchbook. Page after page of strange, ethereal women with hollow eyes and tangled hair filled the paper. One looked like her, another looked like she wanted to disappear. When she came out, her voice was hoarse but steady. I hate this, she said, needing people. Good news, I replied. You don't need me, I'm choosing to be here. That was the night she let me sleep on the couch. 2 weeks later, I wasn't on the couch anymore. Jamie's apartment was small. 1 bedroom, 1 cramped kitchen, and art supplies in every corner like they were part of the floor plan. Her walls were off-white with thumbtacks from old prints she never replaced. I moved in gradually, first my charger, then my toothbrush, then my shirts. I hope you don't snore, she said the first night I stayed. I don't, I replied. But I grind my teeth when I'm stressed. Perfect, she said, smiling. I scream in my sleep when I forget to take my pills. By month 3, we had learned each other's schedules, when she needed naps, when I needed silence, when the pain would hit her like a wave and all she could do was lie on the cold floor with her eyes closed. I'd sit beside her, never touched her without permission. Just wait. You're not scared? She asked once. I'm scared every time, I admitted. But that's not bigger than staying. We had rules, honesty before comfort, sleep before conflict, medication before everything. There were mornings she woke up swollen and sore, her fingers refusing to bend. I'd make tea. There were nights I'd pace the room because the deadlines were killing me. She'd play instrumental piano on her phone and sit beside me. We were a soft kind of survival. Angela came into the picture 6 months in. She and Jamie had met at a gallery showing. She's better at talking to people, Jamie told me. Angela was sunshine and sharp wit. Where Jamie was internal, Angela was kinetic. She became our third wheel in the most unintentional way: movie nights, grocery runs, hospital appointments. She never intruded, just showed up when needed. You two are so quiet it's almost terrifying, Angela said once, eating popcorn on our couch. Jamie laughed. That's because we're always on the brink of death or a panic attack. Angela nodded. Romance goals. Then came the winter that never ended. Jamie's health collapsed like a house of cards in a wind tunnel. She was hospitalized 3 times in 8 weeks, her flare-ups got more violent, she lost 10 pounds in a month. I held her hair when she vomited, I read research papers out loud when she couldn't sleep, I sold my old camera to pay for her specialist visit when her insurance denied coverage. Daniel came back into the picture around that time. He messaged her, I heard you've been sick, if you ever want to talk, I'm around. Jamie showed me the message. I didn't reply, she said. I nodded. I trusted her. I believed in us. The next few months were a blur of pill organizers, heated blankets, and too many sleepless nights. My writing slowed, then stopped. I turned down a teaching job in Chicago because Jamie couldn't travel. She cried when I told her. You're giving up too much, she whispered. I'm choosing my life, I said. And you're part of it. I meant every word. I still do. The week before she vanished, she drew again. Just one piece. It was a figure sitting on a ledge above a city at night, legs dangling, face turned away. Is that you? I asked. She didn't answer. I just smiled softly. 3 days later, she said, I wish I could disappear without hurting anyone. I kissed her forehead. You already disappeared once, I'm just lucky you came back. But I was wrong. That wasn't her returning, that was her rehearsing the exit. The tension didn't announce itself like a scream, it crept in, slowly, like a draft through a cracked window, soft at first, then sharp enough to sting. It started with missed calls. Jamie had always been erratic with her phone, but now she left my messages on read for hours. When I asked if she was overwhelmed, she said she just needed silence, so I gave her silence. Then came the excuses. She started leaving the house more, said she was going for solo sketching walks, which had never been her style. Jamie hated being outdoors for long, especially in the winter. Her flare-ups made the cold unbearable, but she insisted she needed new air. You don't need to explain, I told her gently. I trust you. She smiled, pulled on her gloves, and left without a kiss. Angela came by that afternoon. She always checked in when Jamie seemed off, like she could sense the emotional weather shifting. She told me she was working on a mural commission, Angela said, pulling off her coat, but she wouldn't say where. I looked up from the tea I was pouring. Mural? That's news to me. Angela tilted her head. You didn't know? I shook my head. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of uncertainty settling between us. Angela didn't press further, she never did. That evening, Jamie came home smelling like hotel-grade perfume and cigarette smoke. She didn't smoke, neither did I. She didn't meet my eyes when I greeted her. Instead, she headed straight to the shower and stayed under the water for almost 40 minutes. The next morning, I found her sketchbook on the kitchen counter. A page near the end caught my attention, half torn, as if she meant to remove it but changed her mind. It was a portrait, not me, not of a woman, of a man, tall, sharp eyes, a suit jacket barely sketched but unmistakable. I recognized the slope of the jawline, Daniel. I hadn't seen him in person in over a year, but I hadn't forgotten that smug profile. We weren't enemies, just distant. He was the kind of man who could enter a room and drain the air out of it with charm. Jamie once described him as too curated to be real. I flipped the page, more sketches, coffee cups, half-finished hands, an ashtray with a single lit cigarette. Jamie, I asked that night, careful, calm, have you been seeing Daniel again? She blinked, paused, then shrugged. Not like that. Not like what? Not like you're thinking. Then how? I kept my voice steady. He reached out, said he was in town, said he wanted to catch up. I thought it'd be good to talk to someone outside of this. She gestured vaguely toward the apartment, the pills, the blankets, the silence we'd both stopped noticed. You didn't tell me. Because you'd overthink it. No, I said quietly. I'd understand it, if you give me the chance. She didn't respond, just walked into the bedroom and shut the door softly behind her. Days passed. Jamie grew quieter. I grew colder. It wasn't that she had spoken to Daniel. It was that she had looked for something outside us, without warning, without space for discussion. I wasn't angry. I was confused. Then, the hospital scare happened. She collapsed at home, her lips turned pale, and her hands shook so violently I couldn't get the thermometer under her tongue. The ER admitted her within minutes. I sat beside her, hour after hour, feeding her ice chips and pressing cool towels to her forehead. And when she finally stabilized, she wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I took her hand. Jamie, you don't need to apologize. You're here, you're alive. She nodded, but something about her felt absent, like she had already left, even while she lay in front of me. Angela visited that night. She brought soup and flowers and a quiet, knowing look. After Jamie fell asleep, we stepped into the hallway. She's not okay, Angela said. I know, but not just physically. I know that too. Angela hesitated. Has she said anything about wanting out? I stared at her. Out of what? Angela looked down. Never mind, maybe I misread it. I didn't push, but the seed had been planted. The next morning, Jamie asked me to go home and get her sketchbook. I rushed back to the apartment. As I packed her things, a notification lit up her tablet. A message from Daniel. Hotel's booked, I'll wait as long as it takes, you deserve this. I froze. The air left the room. I didn't respond, didn't scroll, just stared at the words until my eyes blurred. When I returned to the hospital, Jamie was already gone. No discharge papers, no forwarding note, nothing left but an IV standing beside a half-made bed. A nurse confirmed she had signed herself out. She said she had someone picking her up. I wasn't that someone. I didn't know where she'd gone until Daniel posted a story, 2 wine glasses, a city view, and a single gold ring placed on the hotel table like a punctuation mark. Angela came over that evening, found me sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by Jamie's unopened pill bottles and loose pages of her sketchbooks. She's not coming back, is she? I asked. Angela didn't answer. She knelt, gathered the pages, and began stacking them into order. You didn't deserve this. That's not the question, I said. The question is, was she already gone while I was still holding on? Angela reached out, touched my shoulder. Maybe she loved you for comfort, but some people mistake healing for being caged. I looked at the sketch she held, a half-drawn woman stepping over the edge of a window ledge, arms outstretched like she was finally flying. Or finally done falling. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a chair that stays empty. Sometimes it's a toothbrush untouched on the sink for weeks. Sometimes it's the way your body moves through a house that no longer moves with you. The first few days after Jamie left, I didn't cry, I didn't break anything, I didn't scream, I just moved in silence, existing, performing small rituals that once meant something, heating water for tea she wasn't there to drink, folding blankets she used to curl under, checking the time as if I was still tracking her medication schedule. I replayed our last morning like it was a riddle. I stood in the exact spot where she'd asked for her sketchbook, replaying her tone, her gaze, her hesitation. Did she already know? Had she already planned it? Angela checked in every day. She brought food I didn't eat. She offered company I didn't deserve. You don't have to sit here with me, I told her once. She shrugged. Then I won't sit. I'll hover. I'm excellent at emotional hovering. She meant well, but her kindness grated against the silence in my chest. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. I wanted the version of Jamie that needed me, not the one who vanished without warning. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was realizing she had probably let go long before I even saw the fall. A week after she left, I received an envelope, no return address. Inside, a page from her sketchbook, one of the earlier ones, the one where she'd drawn two figures seated back to back, separated by a wall with windows but no doors. Both were reaching through the glass. At the bottom, in her handwriting, some people love best from far away. No signature, no apology, no closure. I didn't know what to do with that. Was it supposed to bring peace? Was it her way of ending a story without writing the final sentence? Daniel didn't post much after that. His page went dark. I assumed they were together, off-grid, building something new on the ashes of what I thought was unshakable. Angela caught me scrolling his old posts one night. You really want to torture yourself like that? I want to understand what made me disposable. She sighed, sitting across from me. You weren't disposable. You were too familiar. That scared her. She said she wanted peace, stability. I gave her all of that. Angela nodded. Exactly. I frowned. You're not helping. I know, but I'm being honest. You built a world where she didn't have to fight anymore, and sometimes, that feels like drowning to someone who only knows how to survive through pain. I started writing again, this time not for editors or contests, but for survival. Late at night, when the apartment was still and my thoughts spun like knives, I poured my questions into a document titled Unsent Letters. Dear Jamie, did I fail you, or did I just become a mirror too clear for you to keep looking into? Dear Jamie, do you think of the mornings I carried your weight so you wouldn't feel weak? Or did those moments fade with every text you sent him? Dear Jamie, was I just the person who held space until your real life came back? I wrote 72 pages, deleted none, reread all. It wasn't about moving on, it was about finding a map through the ruins. Angela brought up the idea of closure once. You need a funeral, she said, slicing an apple in my kitchen. She's not dead. Grief doesn't care. I didn't respond. So she made it for me. She brought over candles, printouts of Jamie's old art, a playlist of ambient piano tracks. She laid everything on the floor and sat me down. Say what you need to say, she whispered. I stared at the flickering light. I'm still proud of you, I said, for fighting every day, even if it meant you had to leave me behind to feel alive again. Angela stayed silent. I continued. I just wish you had trusted me with the pain you hid. I wish you'd told me when loving me started to feel like an obligation. My voice cracked. I wish you hadn't made me a ghost while you were still alive. Angela leaned forward and blew out one of the candles. That's enough for today. Time passed. It didn't heal anything. It just dulled the sharpest edges. I stopped checking Daniel's page. I put away the sketchbooks. I stopped waiting for a knock on the door. But the questions remained, especially late at night. Had she loved me and simply changed? Had I mistaken loyalty for connection? Had I held on to a version of her that no longer existed? Angela noticed I stopped writing. She dropped by one afternoon with a new notebook. I thought you might want fresh pages. I hesitated. I think I'm out of things to say. She raised a brow. Then maybe it's time to write something you don't know yet. Months later, I ran into Daniel at a bookstore downtown. He was alone. No ring. No apology in his eyes. We exchanged brief nods. I could have said something. I could have asked where she was, but I didn't. Not because I didn't care. Because I finally knew. Whatever answer he gave me wouldn't bring her back. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't mine to begin with. It had been nearly 10 months. 10 months since Jamie left that hospital bed without a goodbye. 10 months since I stared at Daniel's name glowing on her tablet. 10 months since I buried my version of her in silence and routine. Grief had softened, not because I had healed, but because I had reshaped myself around the wound. Angela said I looked steadier. I wasn't sure if that meant I was better or just quieter in my pain. Then, the call came. It was a Tuesday. Rain lashed against the windows. I was folding laundry, something that once reminded me of her, how she'd laugh at my terrible attempts at rolling socks. The phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something in me picked it up. John? The voice was faint, cracked like it hadn't been used in days. I froze. Jamie? A beat of silence. I didn't know who else to call. Her voice, once sharp with certainty, now trembled on every syllable. I hadn't heard it in almost a year, but somehow my heart still knew how to break at its sound. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. I'm sorry, she whispered. Where are you? A hospital in New Haven. She stopped. I heard a distant cough, then static. I messed up, John. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, heartbeat thudding in my ears. I didn't know what I was doing until I was already throwing on a jacket, keys in hand. It took 4 hours to reach her. She was admitted under her maiden name, room 209, oxygen tank beside her, pale, smaller, frailer than I remembered. Daniel was nowhere in sight. Jamie looked at me like I was the last face she expected and the only one she hoped for. You came, she whispered. I almost didn't. She smiled weakly. You should have stayed away. You don't get to decide that now. A slow tear slid down her cheek. He left, 2 months ago. I swallowed. Daniel? She nodded. When the tests came back. When things started declining. Yes, stood still. So now you call me? I didn't know who else would still pick up. I said nothing. Jamie turned her face toward the window. He said he wasn't sick, said he'd already done his part. And what part was that? I asked, the bitterness barely restrained. She laughed softly. Being beautiful beside me, looking like the answer to all the pain I never faced. You always ran from pain, I said, even when I held it with you. Jamie looked at me then. I didn't leave you because you were weak. I left because you were steady, and I wasn't ready to stop falling. Did you love him? I think I loved what he promised, a life that didn't remind me of hospitals, of breakdowns, of being the sick girl. With you, I always felt like a patient. That's not fair, I said quietly. No, it isn't, but feelings rarely are. The nurse came in, gave her medication. I stood aside, watching Jamie close her eyes against the IV sting. Angela called while I sat outside her room. She called you? From a hospital? Angela was quiet for a long moment. Are you going to stay? I don't know. Do you still love her? I looked through the glass door. Jamie's frail hand trembled as she reached for her sketch pad. Pages curled at the corners, still drawing, even now. I don't know if love is the right word anymore, I said, but something's still there. I stayed 2 nights in New Haven. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't offer it. We spoke in fragments, no promises, no timelines, just breath between silences that used to be filled with shared futures. On the 3rd day, I brought her fresh paper. She looked up, surprised. You remembered? You draw better when the pages are thick, I said. A soft smile. Thank you. She drew me, that night, asleep in the visitor chair. I didn't know until the morning when I found the sketch by the window. Me, tired, slumped, still holding my phone in hand. She'd captured the exhaustion, the kindness I didn't think I still carried. And on the bottom, in her handwriting, "You were always in a safe place, I just didn't know how to stay." The next twist came 3 weeks later. Jamie was discharged, still weak, still fighting, but stronger. She didn't return to Daniel. She didn't ask to come home with me either. Instead, she moved into a studio run by a hospice foundation for artists, small, quiet, close to care, but far from distraction. I didn't see her often. But one day, a letter came. No envelope, just folded paper on my porch, held down by a stone. I unfolded it slowly. "John, you were never the villain, I was, but not the way stories like to tell it. I didn't cheat because I wanted more. I ran because I was afraid of deserving what you gave so freely. I thought love should be hard, that anything too safe was boring. But you were brave in ways I couldn't see until I lost everything. I don't ask for anything now, not a return, not a second chance. I just wanted to say, thank you for showing me what real care looks like. And I'm sorry I called it a cage when it was actually a shelter. Jamie?" I folded the letter and sat there, unmoving for a long time. Angela came by later, found me on the porch with the letter in my hand. She finally wrote, "Huh." I nodded. "She say she won. You back?" "No." Angela looked relieved and sad at once. "Do you?" I looked up at the sky. "I don't know, but for the first time, I think I finally know who I'm forgiving, her or myself." The invitation arrived in late spring, an art exhibit, no sender name, no return address, just a small cream card with my name on it and a venue printed in neat serif font, "What We Leave Behind, a personal exhibit by J.R. Jamie Rose." I almost didn't go. Angela found the card on my kitchen counter. "You going?" I shook my head. "Feels like walking back into a fire I finally crawled out of." She studied me carefully. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just smoke this time." The gallery was tucked into a converted warehouse, warm amber light spilling from floor-level windows. Soft music played inside, jazz, Jamie's favorite. I stepped in cautiously. The walls were lined with charcoal sketches, some color, some just ink. Most featured silhouettes, vague, faceless shapes curled in beds, sitting on cracked benches, reaching toward something just out of frame. Then I saw it. Me, in a hospital room, chair beside a bed, head bowed, fingers interlocked as if in prayer. The caption below read, "Still here, even then." Further down, another sketch. Me again, walking away from a figure whose face was dissolving into ash. Caption, "He stayed, I ran." Visitors whispered around me. None knew who I was. To them, I was just another patron admiring the pain of someone else's past. Then I saw her. Jamie stood in the far corner, wearing a soft gray scarf and long coat. Thinner, but stronger. Eyes sharper, less clouded. When she saw me, her lips parted. Not a smile, not a shock, just recognition, like a soul finally seeing the echo it had avoided for too long. We didn't speak at first. She waited. I walked slowly toward her. "Quite the exhibit," I said. She nodded. It was time to stop pretending I never existed. I stared at her. And the version of me in these sketches. The only real version of love I've ever known. Her words landed like stones, soft, heavy, impossible to ignore. "I didn't come here for closure," I said. "I didn't send the invitation for it either," she replied. "I just wanted to show you I finally see it, all of it, you, me, what we were, what I destroyed." Jamie gestured toward the final sketch on the far wall. It was her this time. Lying in a hospital bed, alone, hair scattered, skin pale, one hand outstretched toward an empty chair. The chair was labeled, "Could have been." Tears stung my eyes. "You know I would have come back," I said quietly. "Even after everything, even after Daniel, after the silence, I would have stayed again." Jamie nodded. "And that's why I didn't ask." We stepped outside together. Cool air brushed between us. "There's something you don't know," she said suddenly. I turned to her. "Daniel, he didn't just leave, He told me the truth. What truth? He said he only ever wanted to be the one who saved me. The second I started needing someone again, someone real who would get their hands dirty with my pain, he panicked, said he didn't sign up to be a nurse or a martyr. I exhaled, jaw tight. So he used you to feel important. Jamie looked away. And I used him to feel free. And me? I asked. What did you use me for? She hesitated. To feel seen, safe, and then trapped. That's the part I'll never understand, I said. How safety can feel like suffocation. It wasn't you, she whispered. It was the voice in my head, the one that said, if he stays, it's because he pities you, because he needs to feel like the hero. I twisted your kindness into a weapon against myself. That wasn't fair, I said, trying not to let the ache break into anger. No, she agreed. It was cruel. We stood in silence, the air between us colder than the night. Jamie broke it. I never told you what happened to the night I left. I turned to her fully now. I had a panic attack. After you left to get my meds, I looked at the window and wondered what would happen if I just disappeared. Not to die, just to vanish, to leave everything and see if the world noticed. You could have told me, I said. I didn't know how to be loved when I felt unworthy, so I burned the house to prove I was right about the fire. Except I was still in it. Jamie's face crumpled. She took a shaky breath. I'm sorry, John, not for leaving, but for how, for never giving you the choice to fight or fall with me. The street lamps flickered above us. Her hand twitched at her side. I've rebuilt myself, she said softly. Not completely, but enough. Enough to tell you this face to face, you were never the weight. I was just too broken to stand beside anyone who didn't break me first. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't, because I had loved her at her worst, and somehow, part of me still did. I didn't move closer. I didn't ask her to come back. Instead, I asked, so what now? Jamie looked up at the stars. Now, you live. You love someone who doesn't mistake care for control. You let your heart rest. And you? I keep drawing, keep healing, keep learning how not to run when things get soft and real. I nodded slowly. Then I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out something I hadn't touched in nearly a year. Her old key. I kept it, I said. Not because I thought you'd come back, but because I needed proof I hadn't imagined all of it. Jamie stared at the key in my palm. Then she stepped forward, and gently, slowly, she closed my fingers around it again. Don't return it, she whispered. Let it rust, let it stay locked, let it remind you of what you deserved, even when I couldn't give it. Angela called that night. You saw her? I did. Did she ask for you back? No. Did you want her to? I paused. Part of me did, but a bigger part finally didn't. Angela exhaled through the line. I'm proud of you. Why? Because you finally told the truth, to her and to yourself. Weeks passed. The sketch Jamie left of me in the chair ended up at my door. No note, no message, just the drawing, framed, clean. I hung it in the hallway. Not to remember the pain, but to remember that I stayed. Even then. The gallery closed 2 months after the exhibit ended. Jamie's final show had received quiet praise from critics and private buyers. Her name was slowly rising in niche circles. A visual storyteller of grief and guilt, one headline had called her. She didn't reach out again, and I didn't chase closure, but closure had its own way of circling back, wearing a different face, carrying unfinished business. It was Daniel who broke the silence next. An email, no greeting, no apology, just a digital contract attached, with a cold note. I'm offering equity in my new media firm, you'll want to see the name on it. The firm was called JR Creative, Jamie and Rose. He had named his new branding venture after the woman he once left in a hospital bed. And when I scrolled further, I saw it, her signature, the logo, her style. He was repackaging her art, her pain, her redemption, for campaigns, brand kits, corporate storytelling, monetizing the story of her survival. Of our survival. Angela stood behind me, reading over my shoulder. He trademarked her initials, she whispered. No, I said slowly. He trademarked the part of her that never truly healed. Angela's jaw clenched. She has no idea, does she? I don't think so. I reached out to Jamie. Not with anger, not even with a warning, just a single message. You once drew me sleeping in the chair beside you, now he's turning that into stock art. A minute passed, then another. Finally, she replied. What are you talking about? I sent screenshots, links, the paperwork. Her silence afterward said everything. 48 hours later, I got a knock on my door. Jamie, no coat, no scarf, no makeup, just fury. He forged it, she said, holding up a document. Used a digital scan of an old signature from a gift tag. I stepped aside, letting her in. He told me the exhibit inspired him to create an agency for authentic narratives. I thought he meant stories like his childhood, his immigrant journey, not mine, not yours. Angela watched from the hallway. I could feel her gaze. I have lawyers, Jamie said, but they're slow, and he's faster, slicker, already pushing pitches to brands using sketches from my hospital years. I stared at her. You want my help? I want justice, she said. The kind that doesn't just shut him down. I want him to feel it. I sat back, folded my arms. Then you came to the right person. The plan wasn't loud, it was meticulous. We waited 2 weeks. During that time, I had Angela reach out, posing as a potential client from a boutique tech firm with a sickly sweet redemption story to pitch. Daniel took the bait immediately. Angela met him at a rooftop cafe, with a hidden mic under her collar and a fake portfolio on her tablet. So, what's your brand's angle? He asked, leaning forward with his signature charm. She smiled politely. We're about turning trauma into triumph. Consumers want to feel like they're saving someone when they buy now, you know? He grinned. That's my language, and I've got the perfect artist for that. Real backstory, hospital rooms, abandonment. She practically died in public. Angela raised a brow. That sounds intense. Oh, it is, Daniel said proudly. But she doesn't mind, she signed off. Inspiration has to come from somewhere. What's her name? He smirked. Client confidentiality. The mic caught everything. Jamie filed the cease and desist first. Then came the press leak. A former patient and artist exploited by a man who once claimed to love her, now using hospital trauma for profit. It went viral in 6 hours. Not because of Jamie's name, but because someone else stepped into the spotlight. Me. I published the sketch, the one she gave me, framed, signed, captioned, "You were always the safe place, I just didn't know how to stay." And underneath it, I wrote, "This drawing was never for sale, but someone tried to sell it anyway. He left her when she needed help, then tried to brand her healing as a product. That's not art, that's theft." I didn't name Daniel, I didn't have to. By the end of the week, 4 sponsors pulled out of his new agency. 2 major artists issued public statements. Jamie received 3 gallery offers and 2 documentary pitches. And